Surprises in the U.S. Senate campaign, plus the gubernatorial debate is this weekend, and the fate of gay marriage in Michigan. MiWeek starts right now.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.
Hi there and welcome to MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Christy McDonald. We are 4 weeks away from the election, and there are some big moves this week to talk about. Bad news for Senate candidate Terri Lynn Land. Almost $1 million in ads for her campaign are being pulled. So what does that signal for her future? We'll talk about that. Plus the gubernatorial debate this weekend and the impact it could have on the race. Also, Detroit leadership at odds over an ordinance that would affect new business in the city. And the fate of gay marriage in Michigan in light of the Supreme Court's decision not to take on cases this week. We will get to all of that coming up on MiWeek. But we do start with a look at the U.S. Senate race. A new poll from the Detroit News this week puts Congressman Gary Peters ahead of Terri Lynn Land 44% to 35%. And the National Republican Senatorial Committee said this week it is pulling $850,000 worth of Land TV ads in the last weeks of the campaign. Taking a look at that impact now with Nolan Finley of the Detroit News and Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press. Gentlemen, it's good to see you. You know, we're always talking about the election as we're now in these final weeks. But I think the poll that came out and the fact that ad money has been pulled from Terri Lynn Land's campaign is a huge signal, Nolan.
Well, it's not good for a campaign. It's actually 1.1 million because they pulled cable TV advertising money too. So that was a big hit. You know, the race just stretched out on her, and money is going elsewhere. There are a lot of competitive Senate races across the country. There's been a calculation that they don't need Michigan to take the Senate. At one point, Michigan was thought to be the pivotal race, and so now they're going to put them. There's a lot of 1, 2, 3-point races out there, and that's where the money's going. I mean, it's bad for Terri because with the governor stretching out, you know, there might have been some coattails. You've got strong candidates below her on the statewide ballot. You might have encouraged a lot of straight ticket voting. Now you're going to have more split ticket voting. You know, she might have pulled this off with the right strategy and the right money in the last 3 weeks.
All right, let's talk a little bit still about the money, Stephen. So if you see this ad pull from this group, what does that signal to other people who have invested? Are we going to see more people possibly pulling their ads?
Well, I think you could see the Democrats also ease off advertising for Gary Peters if they don't feel like Terri Lynn Land will be up on the air in the last couple of weeks of the election. They have other races they might want to invest in. That Kentucky race is still very close.
It's tightening.
And there's some others that they may want to say, look, we have a better shot or a more important shot here than in Michigan, which everyone seems to now be looking at as sort of over. I'm not sure that's true, but certainly that's the calculation that they're making.
Yeah, you know, you never like to say anything is over with 4 weeks to go until Election Day, but what do you think has changed in the last week and a half or 2 weeks here, Nolan?
Well, I don't think it's over, and you know, she's got a challenge ahead. A lot can happen in the 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks until election. You know, there's a lot of movement generally in October. But she has still not told us who she is. She spent too much of her money, and those who are spending on her behalf spent way too much of their money telling us about Gary Peters. Well, Gary Peters start with a high dislike figure anyway. She didn't need to spend so much money tearing him down. She needed to spend more of her time, more of her energy on telling us who Terri Lynn Land was and why she's capable of being a senator. You notice that Peters' ads have switched to him. You know, these folksy ads, you know, like me. She never made that transition, and still in this latest crop of ads that are out there, it's attack, attack, attack. It's past time for her to make the switch. She's done all the damage she can do to Gary Peters, and start talking about Terri Lynn Land.
What about some of larger campaign events that it feels like what we've been missing in this campaign?
It's been a sleeper campaign. I feel like all of the campaigns this season have been sort of at a lower level. I challenge anyone to tell me what's the big idea that's in the middle of any of these races. There isn't one. These are personality contests to an alarming extent, I think, and that race is the worst of them. It's not just that Terri Lynn Land is not telling you very much about who she is. Gary Peters' ads have also not been as much, and like you said, just in the last week or so, he's switched to these sort of folksy ads, trying to sort of identify himself. But he's somebody that voters know a little better than Terri Lynn. But neither of them is saying, here's the big thing that needs to be done, or that I believe. It's sort of amorphous still.
And I would disagree that voters know him a little better. That's what's surprising to me. Terri Lynn Land was well known in Michigan.
She's run 2 statewide
as a very
races,
popular
right?
2 times
Sure.
Secretary of State, and yet she has not talked about that record in the campaign. She's not reminded people, I did this, and this. I mean, she was a fairly
Do you think that, I mean, this is one of the problems with her candidacy. What's relevant from her time in the Secretary of State's office in the U.S. Senate?
One of the things you might look at, and anybody coming to Congress is coming in from someplace else.
Sure.
But I mean, she was a very independent Secretary of State, comparatively so.
She was.
She made John Engler angry on many occasions because she refused to use that office to sort of push a partisan edge, and she should talk about that. And she was very creative in creating opportunities for women employees while she was Secretary of State. She hasn't talked about that in these ads. I don't understand why she's not telling us who she is.
Well, and I think it's also interesting is that there's no debate either. And we've talked about this now numerous times about getting candidates to debate. And Channel 7, they just put something out saying, you know, all the negotiations fell through with both camps to have a Senate debate because they were in negotiations that with Wood TV also on the western side of the state. And I really think that that is such a loss for the voters of Michigan, the fact that you wouldn't see those 2 candidates up there talking about the issues or talking about their records and things that they have done that is perhaps relevant to the office they're running for an open U.S. Senate seat.
Well, I mean, and look at the conversation. It's this side wants this, the other side wants that, and they're both sort of pulling on the television station to accommodate, blaming the television station. This is the wrong. We've got the whole thing turned upside down. The candidates cannot be in charge of this process. As long as that's true, there will never be incentive for them to do the thing that they're supposed to do, which is show up at a debate where there are neutral rules and format and face the other campaign. There will always be somebody whose calculation is that it's better to stay out of that format altogether. And that's why, you know, I feel like a broken record. I keep saying we have got to come up with an independent way to manage that process.
And, you know, after yapping about debates for the whole season, Gary Peters now got his heels in, backing off, because there's absolutely no reason for him to debate. You got a 9-point lead. You don't want to give your candidate, your competition, any opportunity to close that gap. I can't imagine him signing on to it.
And so it's, you know, it's seesaws, right?
It's
a month too late.
At one point it's Terri Lynn Land who seems to have no reason to debate. Now it seems like Gary Peters has no, and that's not the issue. The issue is that the voters deserve to see this.
It's the voters' reason for them to debate.
You know, I don't often talk about the press as sort of the voice of the people. I think there's some arrogation to that gets misused. But this is one of those instances where that role is really true, where a conglomeration of media organizations and some interest groups could speak on behalf of the voters and say, forget what these candidates want. We need to have a good debate between them about the issues.
$35 million spent so far on these campaigns, talking to the voters through television ads, through that distorted format, and neither one of them will sit down and say, here I am, unfiltered.
All right, well, speaking of debates, this weekend, Governor Rick Snyder, challenger Mark Schauer will meet for a town hall forum debate. It is Sunday night at 6 o'clock. We will carry it live here on Detroit Public TV. I'll be taking questions from the audience, and Stephen and Nolan will be moderating questions for the candidates from the stage. All right, so finally, this Sunday, the two will be side by side. We will be there, an hour-long format. Give us a little bit of insight, I guess, Nolan, I'll start with you, about kind of these next couple of days and the preparation for it and what you want to hear from the candidates.
Well, I hope both candidates are coming prepared to talk about the next 4 years, because what we've heard in this campaign so far is all about he did this and he did that, and you know, looking back at past decisions, past policy. I'm looking for these campaigns to present a vision. As Steve said earlier, we haven't heard the big ideas. We haven't heard the big vision. This is an opportunity to tell us, okay, here's what Michigan's going to look like in 4 years under my leadership.
Do you think that's what you're going to hear?
I'm not sure. Well, that's certainly the way we're going to structure it. I mean, I think we're still working on our questions. We won't want to give away early what they're going to be. But I think what we're trying to do.
Boxers are briefs, though, right?
That's right. Of course, that's first.
You will not hear any of those kinds of questions at this town hall forum.
I think we're trying to structure the questions in a way that they do look forward. And yeah, I mean, Rick Snyder has a record that needs to be addressed, but that's less important at this point than, okay, well, what do you want to do for the next 4 years? And that's both true of the governor, who I think still has some work to do articulating the things that he's going to do to either tweak or change the agenda that he has put forth. But it's also, I think it's more incumbent on Mark Schauer, who doesn't have a record that we can look at and say, here's what he did. He's got to be much more specific about, okay, so how about saying, here's what the first 100 days in office would look like if I were elected. Rick Snyder did that when the seat was open 4 years ago. We haven't seen Mark Schauer talk about how that early time in office, which is super important in tone setting and agenda setting, what would it look like?
And that's one of the challenges the governor's faced, because he came in with a big aggressive agenda.
That's right.
And, oh, by the way, got most of what he wanted done. I mean, there's very few undone things on that initial agenda, roads being the biggest one, and a couple other things. I mean, he's got to regroup now and say, okay, I'm not just going to sort of manage things for the next 4 years. Here's what Michigan needs, and here's how I'm going to meet those needs.
I think it's very interesting because you talked a little bit about, when we were talking about the Senate campaign, that the governor's race has opened up a little bit. I feel like I have seen a more aggressive tone from both sides in the last week or so. What would you attribute that to, Stephen?
It's the time, I mean, the days are running out on the calendar. You've got, and you now have a widening lead for the governor, so you're going to see Mark Schauer get more aggressive, I think, in that last couple of weeks. It always picks up in late October because things get tight, people get desperate, and you gotta seal the deal.
But the governor was a little bit lackadaisical in his campaign up until a week or two ago, and I think it finally dawned on him, looking at these polls that showed him with just one or two out, that it was time to put some distance between an incumbent governor and a relatively unknown challenger.
Sure.
And I think he just woke up and said, I've got to start talking about this. I've got to start answering the charges. And he got a little sharper with his elbows.
Yeah, we both had the governor in this week for his endorsement interview at the various newspapers, and I'll say he was much sharper than I have seen him over the summer in terms of what he wants to do, in terms of defending his record. We had a really deep policy discussion with him that I have not had, frankly, in a couple of years. This was a much more focused Rick Snyder than I've seen. I'm hoping that's the guy who shows up on Sunday for the debate, so that the voters get to see that.
And he doesn't like to campaign, and he put off starting the campaign. Most folks would have started it last fall. He said, well, I'll get around to it in February, March. And he doesn't like to campaign. And I think he finally just said, well, now's the time. We're in the home stretch. I better apply the whip and get after it.
One thing I think people are going to be looking for in this debate is the discussion about education and the accusations that have gone back and forth on either side. Schauer saying that he's cut $1 billion, and now the governor's saying that's an out-and-out lie, like using those terms about finally putting to rest or getting the facts out there on both sides. Is that something that you're kind of looking
absolutely.
towards?
I think that's key. Well, that's a quantifiable thing. You either cut or you didn't cut, and you've got one candidate saying I didn't cut, and one candidate saying you did, and that's something. If you're going to make those claims, you ought to be able to prove it. You ought to be able to bring the numbers, bring the facts, and that's clearly one of the issues, probably the key issue we're going to get after, because it has been a major contention point in this campaign.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the areas where the Democratic ads, both Schauer's ads and the third-party ads, have been really effective. Has been repeated over and over and over again, and it is in people's minds.
Yeah, it's putting question in people's minds.
And the governor, I thought this week, showed that he's a little annoyed by that. They got to him because he feels like the record says something really different. So hopefully Sunday we'll get them to go at it in person.
So the governor was at both of your ed boards then this week, talking about that. So
And Mark Schauer was in last week.
I don't have Schauer till next week.
Okay.
So you have Schauer next week. So then when can we see endorsements from the papers?
Well, not till after the debate. I think that's not generally something we share with one another.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
I'm waiting till after the elections this year.
We want to be dead
your
right.
endorsements,
It's
yeah.
been so long since I've been right on these elections. I'm going to wait to make sure.
All right. Well, we'll look for that. And again, a reminder that the town hall debate is this Sunday at 6 o'clock right here on WTVS. All right, moving on to Detroit. A proposed ordinance for the city is causing a little bit of friction. The new head of the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation says a proposed ordinance from City Council tying community investment to big development projects would actually hurt business expansion in the city. Now, the ordinance would be the first of its kind in the country. When you're talking about big development projects, Stephen, though, and making sure that the community within those development projects would be taken care of as well, why would that be a bad thing?
Well, it's not, and let's be clear. There should not be any big development projects in the city of Detroit without community benefits agreements. I believe that strongly, and I think the record of these kinds of things around the country would also back that up. Nobody else does it that way. At the same time, an ordinance like this, which sort of cements it in and makes it impossible to do development without one, adds to what are already a number of barriers to doing development here. I mean, I think everyone's got to be very realistic about the fact that this is still not the most ideal place to do a lot of these things. This is still a place with a very high tax burden, with a workforce that is not really ready yet to take on as many of these jobs as will be made available. There are a lot of disincentives to people doing these kind of projects, and so I think the smart way to deal with this is to try to come up with community benefits agreements that help address some of those issues. But the ordinance is sort of a lazy way of adding just another hurdle in front of these developers.
So you're thinking case by case basis then?
I'm thinking no ordinance at all. I mean, a community benefit of a big project or a small project is the growth in the economy and the growth in the tax base,
I don't agree
the
with
job creation, the economic activity that springs from it. The problem with this ordinance isn't that it just hits big projects, and most big projects has some form of a community benefits agreement attached to it, or at least a gentleman's agreement, if you will. But this will apply to projects as small as $15 million. You're going to subject developers to negotiating with community activists. They're not negotiating with city officials. They've got to sit down with community activists. It's a shakedown agreement. People aren't going to come here and say, take the risk of investing in Detroit, which is already higher than in a lot of other places, and then have to sit down and promise a good chunk of their earnings, their profits, to outside groups.
Right, what didn't you agree with?
Well, I mean, I don't agree that the only benefit that we get from these developments is the development itself. And that's not the way it's done anywhere else in the country. You look at all these stadiums that get built in other cities, they all have community benefits agreements, big projects, big infrastructure projects. I think it's important to look at what incited this ordinance from the council. It's the Red Wings deal. There were lots of things talked about while that was going on, about things that could be done for the community. None of them ended up in there, and so we have a humongous public infrastructure project that we're giving them some $200 million worth of subsidy for no benefits agreement.
Oh, for God's sakes.
It's unprecedented.
You look at this development, it's not just an arena. The Ilitches built the community benefits right into it. They're building out whole neighborhoods, and they're building the promised spin-off development up front, which has never happened before. And so they're spending money to build housing at every level, to take neighborhoods that have been sitting there 50, 60 years just rotting and reviving them.
But
and now they've got to write a shakedown check to...
Well, no, hang on. Let's talk specifically about
absolutely
what
is.
specific community benefits you'd be looking for.
Well, okay. What if we had put a surcharge on tickets, a $5 surcharge on tickets? All of that went to schools. What would be wrong with that? I mean, the problem is not what the development will do in that area. It's going to do a lot of things in that area. The problem is you have 140 square miles of the city, most of which is still suffering from massive disinvestment, which has huge systemic problems that these developments need to start feeding. So do something for schools, do something for neighborhoods, at the same time you're doing something for downtown. Those were the kinds of things that the community benefits agreements that were on the table were trying to address. The Ilitches bristled at that. They got backed by the Snyder administration, which said, don't worry about it. And so now we have a deal with nothing.
What they said was, we're not going to shake down every person who goes into the Red Wing Stadium with
That's
an
not a
extra
shakedown.
$5 charge. You've already priced, a whole lot of the population out of buying tickets. Why not slap a $5 charge on every loaf of bread you sell, for crying out loud? I mean, it gets to the point
the
where
public subsidy that's going
you've got to
should give
trust
some return.
that a development of this size is going to give a return to everybody in the
Like
form
Comerica Park?
in the form
Like
of
Ford Field?
Well, and they were built differently. That's exactly my point, that they're building in the community benefits up front with this housing, with these neighborhoods.
Those aren't
they're
community
creating.
benefits, not to the whole city.
Absolutely.
Well, I think-
they benefit the whole city entirely.
I think what the problem that you're having with is you're saying a lot of things like you've got to trust that's going to happen in a gentleman's agreement, but when you do business, you want to see something more that's in writing.
The other thing that the Ilitches bristled at was requirements for local hiring. That's always a big issue with construction projects in Detroit, is that Detroiters don't get first crack or a fair crack all the time at the jobs. That's not in there. The Ilitches have been saying in good faith that they want to do that they have targets for themselves, but a target is really different from a requirement.
In a city like this, with such a low-skilled workforce, you cannot lock in.
So why not build that in?
You cannot lock in such mandates, Steve, because you talk to contractors and they'll tell you,
hard
look,
to
we
find.
spend a lot of money training Detroit workers. We get them trained, they get a job, they make money, they move to the suburbs, they're no longer Detroit workers, and we got to start all over
Sometimes
again.
that happens.
All right, so
It
let's
happens a lot.
let's take a look now. Is this pretty much the first possible disagreement we have between the mayor and some members of city council that will have to be worked out?
I mean, I think what council is saying is, look, this is important to us, and you got to pay some attention to our concerns, which we're speaking for the people, much more directly than they used to, because they work in these districts. I don't think that this will end up going, 15 rounds to the mat. There will be some sort of compromise, but I think the point will be made at the end that we will not have $200 million worth of public subsidy going to a billionaire who has no requirement to do anything else for the community.
All right, last word on this, Nolan.
It won't. You can't have it apply to small projects. That'll get negotiated.
I agree with
out.
that,
And
yeah.
you can't have these project developers negotiating with community
Also
activists,
agree with that.
because that is a non-starter and it'll go nowhere. That's not going to happen.
All right, and finally, the fate of gay marriage in Michigan after the U.S. Supreme Court this week decided not to take on similar cases around the country. So what does that mean for Michigan's case, which is being decided by the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals? Stephen?
I think everybody was shocked when this happened on Monday. I think most court watchers really believed they would take these cases. It's a number of cases from a number of states. You have the gambit of sort of reasoning and argument in those decisions. This was the case that they could have sort of helped clear up for lower courts and states what's going on. I think the fact that they didn't really signals that they may believe this fight is over. They don't need to make another grand statement about these kinds of provisions, that they are not constitutional.
Or that so many of the lower courts are making the same decision, that there's nothing conflicting?
And you have not seen a lower appeals court yet. You have a couple district courts, but the appeals courts have not said that it's okay to have these gay marriage bans yet. If you get one, if the Sixth Circuit does, I believe there's one that's coming up now in the Fifth Circuit down in New Orleans, then you could see the courts step in. But the other possibility is that the court is still going to say this is something for states to decide on their own, and we don't want to get involved. I'm not sure that's what's going on, but that's a possibility.
And interesting, and people are watching here in Michigan. Last minute we have left.
They are, and I don't think you're going to see, I agree with Steve, I don't think you're going to see the court affirm gay marriage as long as the courts of appeals strike down these bans. I think if they get a case where the Court of Appeals upholds a ban, I think then they have no choice but to take the case. So I wouldn't expect the Sixth Circuit to affirm Michigan's ban. I think that case is not going to go to the Supreme Court, And so I think, the earlier ruling will stand.
And we'll just be waiting. All right, Nolan, Stephen, thanks so much, guys. And that is going to do it for My Week. We want to remind you, this Sunday, 6 p.m., we will be broadcasting the Gubernatorial Town Hall live from Wayne State University with Governor Rick Snyder and Congressman Mark Schauer. Join Nolan, Stephen, and myself for what is sure to be a pivotal event in this race. And as always, you can find us at MiWeek.org. I'm Christy McDonald. Take care, and we will see you next week.
Recently, Michigan's economy has begun to turn around. Michigan's gained over 250,000 new jobs. We've paid off $20 billion in long-term debt. And our population is increasing for the first time in a decade. But to make Michigan a top 10 state, there's still plenty of work to be done. Step up and help put Michigan on top. Learn what you can do at MichiganTurnaroundPlan.com.
Funding is also provided by Delta.